Great, thanks for having me here, you guys. Good to be here. I feel like it's been too long since I've presented in front of you, so I do apologize for that. And I'm not here asking for anything. I just want to give an update on what we've been doing over the past year or so. Over the last year, we've formalized our group some, and we've gone through a strategic planning process, and we've come up with new mission and vision. Honestly, it hasn't really changed the direction of the group, but our mission is promoting forest community and watershed resilience through collaboration. So it's pretty simple, and our vision is resilient and adaptive Upper Dolores River watershed, providing ecosystem services, maintaining ecological integrity, and sustaining community values in the face of environmental change, supported by a diverse and active stakeholder group. So what we really want to do is connect the social, economic, and ecological kind of components to our area, our communities, to our diverse stakeholder group, and align interests as best we can. And we expanded our boundary a little bit. Originally, when the group formed in about 2015, it was like more or less strictly the Upper Dolores watershed itself, and now our articulated focal, that is still our focal area, but expanding to all of Montezuma and Dolores counties. Before I go on, I just want to ask, is there kind of a time frame that you guys want me to keep to right now?
No.
Okay, thanks.
But if it is too long, we'll let you know.
Please do. I'm sure you will. If you want to, I have a few slides. If you want to move to the next slide. So like a lot of what the reality is for everyone right now, we've moved to a largely online platform, as you can see from our Zoom meeting. I know I watched you guys through Zoom some today and YouTube as well. But we're still a network of a lot of different groups representing a lot of different interests within Montezuma and Dolores counties. So federal agencies, Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, Ute Mountain Ute, NRCS, as well as state agencies, largely Colorado State Forest Service, CPW, CSU Extension, local government. We've been working really closely with Ken Charles recently, and really appreciate all of the efforts that James Dietrich with the county has put into the collaborative, and Rachel Medina with GIS has certainly put in a lot of legwork too more previously. And so we really appreciate all of the support from the county too. And county commissioners from Dolores County are on our steering committee. And we have then kind of the outside of agencies and local and state and federal government, we have kind of the gamut of interests from timber industry, a lot of operators, as well as the Colorado Timber Industry Association actively participating, to fire protection districts, infrastructure entities like Empire Electric, nonprofit science organizations, welfare mitigation entities, water managers. And I think that's the strength of the collaborative, is the diversity of participants. It also makes it complicated and difficult too, obviously, to align interests and work together. But I think that's where kind of the heart of the value of the collaborative is too. So we've been holding monthly meetings for our stakeholder group. I mean, we haven't missed one yet since 2015. And we have a steering committee that's similarly diverse, representing the different areas. Happy to talk more about that if you guys want me to. And then we have ad hoc working groups that meet on an as-needed basis. And I guess while I'm here, I'll pitch it like, happy, you guys, however you guys want to be involved with the collaborative, you're more than welcome whenever. And so there's a standing invitation, and would be happy to chat with you kind of individually about how that could look, from being on a steering committee or just as stakeholders too. So
Well, we have James Dietrich, he does participate. For
Exactly,
Montezuma County.
exactly. And so I just want to kind of pitch it out to you guys too, but highly appreciate James's involvement, and he does provide really meaningful engagement, and saw that he just accepted an invitation moments ago. So, great. Do you want to go on to the next one? So through the strategic planning process, we identified 5 program areas within the collaborative. Community education, collaborating with land management agencies, forest products industry development. I hesitate, I feel like development isn't the greatest word for that. It's more just like support. And resilient forests and communities and collaborative effectiveness. And so I just want to give maybe a couple of highlights from each of those that have been happening recently. Within community education, it's kind of a complicated year for doing public outreach, but especially in 2019, we attended a lot of events and have tried to put them together. This year we put together a webinar. We had a number of different events planned, but haven't been able to pull it off. But the webinar was largely focused on some rapid risk assessments that were completed for the town of Dolores. Every structure in the town of Dolores got a quick roadside wildfire risk assessment. We use kind of a standard form that a wildfire research team up at CSU developed with fire protection districts and fire managers throughout the state. It was all done from roads. It won't affect people's property values, things like that. But we've planned outreach for that with the town of Dolores and the Dolores Fire Protection District. We're going to be sending out individual mailers to everyone about that risk and identifying ways if they want to, kind of breaking down where everyone's risk is, but from just like how their structure is constructed to defensible space issues to kind of egress as well, and identifying ways to mitigate it and resources too. So the webinar was largely around that and kind of an update on, it was in May, an update on prognosis for the wildfire season too, which luckily we haven't had too extreme of one here, aside from like the East Canyon fire, but obviously up north from where we are, it's not an insignificant year. And we will be holding more tours this year. We've been kind of waiting for the Forest Service, especially, to be able to support more folks, and now I think it's happening. And so we'll be taking collaborative members and the general public out on tours, especially about the Salter environmental assessments that is upcoming, that I'll be talking about a little bit more in a moment. For resilient forests and communities, we've been coordinating pile burns at the Nature Center at Butler Corner, providing a lot of collaborative input with Cortez's source water protection plan and working with Rich Landreth on that, and developing desired conditions for a range of issues across the landscape. And that's been a lot of the work that we've been diving into right now. And so everything from the ecological to the socioeconomic and the water sides especially. And we've been working with the Forest Service, with the Timber Industry Association, with scientists on developing ponderosa pine desired conditions, ones that work for industry, work for our communities, provide economic support, and is also done in kind of a ecologically and scientifically sound manner. And the goal of those is to have a document that the State Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Service, and just like private landowners can use to that show collaborative, kind of articulate clearly where the collaborative ideas are for desired conditions for ponderosa pine forest, but we're going to be expanding them beyond that, and really be useful for the drafting of environmental assessment and forest plans in the future. And I know the Forest Service has been a huge stakeholder in that, and they've identified that that's going to be a really crucial and supporting document, so they know how to kind of from the ground level where collaborative values are. So. That's feeding directly into collaborating with land management agencies. We've been diving into a lot of conversations about NEPA, Lone Pine Environmental Assessment, which you guys, I kind of assume you guys have heard about some, but it's a large, like 60,000 acre environmental assessment that was recently passed, largely in Dolores County, but also in Montezuma County in the northwest corner of the National Forest. And they're transitioning to the Salter Environmental Assessment, which is also a vegetation management environmental assessment, going from like Salter Y area down into Boggy Draw. So covering a lot of, it's going to support a lot of economic activity, but also intersects with a lot of forest health issues, recreation issues, wildlife issues too on the forest. And so we've been facilitating a lot of conversations within the collaborative about the environmental assessment, holding pre-scoping meetings, and helping to develop monitoring and adaptive management frameworks with the Forest Service. And the Forest Service is incorporating the collaborative directly into the EAs too. It was in Lone Pine, it will be in Salter as kind of the sounding board for community questions and issues. And
Danny, but before you go, how is the dwarf funded? How are you guys funded?
we have, historically it's largely been through the Forest Service. We have a Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart Planning grant that's supported and continues to support a lot of the work that we do. We have, some smaller funds coming through the Onward Foundation, through the Ballantine Foundation too. And we've had previous grants with the Colorado Water Conservation Board.
Mm-hmm.
And
What's your annual operating budget?
my annual operating budget, good question. Probably under 100,000. Certainly under 100,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought when the Forest Service first initiated this, it was somewhere around 250,000 to get it off the ground. Was I wrong in that?
It probably was. I wasn't there when it first came off the ground, but that was probably it for probably about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is what the expectation was there. Yeah.
So now you're in your
We're in our fifth year. Yeah, and we've secured funds through other sources and will be, and as maybe some of you know, there are a few other. What I was about to get into, I think that's like a good leading question to what I was getting into about the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative and the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Commissioner Sukla, you were on a call for the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative. Do Commissioner Candelaria and Ertel. I'm sorry. How do you pronounce your last name?
You said it.
Ertel.
Yeah, you got it.
Have you heard of the initiative?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And we're really excited about it, and we're enthusiastic about it. Dwarf helped draft the document, and I went up to Golden, Colorado, to help present our case in Southwest Colorado for it, and we did get it funded. And it's still in development, as you clearly know, kind of how exactly it's going to look, but there is a steering committee. And there's some hope and assumption that will help secure funds through, a variety of different means, probably through foundations or state funding or federal funding too, to support collaborative engagement. And I think the complicated part of collaboration is that it takes time, and that for a long time it doesn't seem like there's necessarily a lot of outcomes to show for it. But I think especially through RMRI and the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program, which a FACA committee just highly recommended Southwest Colorado, our proposal that would include a huge amount of work on this west side of the National Forest to be funded for it. We were within the top 3 recommended proposals. It's a nationwide one, and it's for 10 years of funding, up to $4 to $5 million per year. And we are highly recommended for it. Theoretically, this month there should be a final decision from Sunny Purdue. So, and so I think the collaboration is bringing in a lot of forest health initiatives and just like economic, ideally stimulus to local forest products producers through that forest stewardship contracts. And support for things like road maintenance and watershed health work. So that's I think that these are some of like the real tangible fruit of working together in collaboration. So I'll leave it at that for that moment. But I think just to stress that the focus of Dwarf is just as much local economic activity along with forest health, that you can't really have a healthy forest without a thriving community and thriving economy, and that it's hard to have a thriving economy and community without, healthy public lands or healthy forests. So I think all of you viscerally know that too. But so forest products industry development has been a major focus of the group as well. Initially with the group, there were big questions about how to support a lot of these stewardship contracts, the work that needs to get done that isn't necessarily economically viable. And as other groups like the Ironwood group has come in, I think it's obvious that like they're kind of answering the questions for the collaborative too, that they're able to have a really kind of really flexible structure. They're able to use a lot of different species, a lot of different sizes of trees, and have just a good model. And so beyond just like trying to like develop new industry, we're trying to figure out ways to help support things like stewardship contracts for them, and that's I think largely through RMRI and CFLRP, those larger programs. And the other area is collaborative effectiveness, and so we just want to be as open, transparent, as inclusive of a group as possible that has clear goals and isn't driven by one angle of the collaborative. So all of our notes and meeting agendas are online. You guys are welcome to look at them. If you go to the next slide, that just shows the maps for the different initiatives. It's kind of a complicated map. They're overlapping, but the yellow one with a black dotted line in the middle is the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative. So it goes from, just east of Dove Creek all the way down to beyond Bayfield. A lot of the work is focused in the western side, so in the Dolores Ranger District and community side, and it's probably going to expand a little bit and include a little bit more of the private lands in between Dolores and Mancos than is there. And the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program largely mirrors that. That's only on the National Forest. So I'm tempted to leave it there and just see if you guys have any questions. I think I really want to express my appreciation for James Dietrich's participation and want to, actively engage the county of Mancos, maybe a little, or county of Mancos, I'm sorry. The town of Mancos, but also the county of Montezuma, like more directly too. And I came here a little bit earlier, right before all of the COVID things happened, presented to two of the groups that James was facilitating, the recreation group and the grazing group, really trying to solicit input and bring in a bigger diversity of ideas on especially the SALTER environmental assessment, because that's the one that's going on, and we're having a lot of conversations about that right now and will continue for a while, and make sure that all the different interests, some of which aren't really at the table quite as much, particularly the grazing community, I'm hearing those interests and getting that feedback. So.
All right, commissioners, do you have any questions to ask Danny?
I don't at this time, not at all.
I think the only question I would have, and I'm not sure this is part of your charge as to what you do, but have you been able to, in this landscape, especially what's in Dolores and Montezuma and Mancos areas, identify forests that need work done in them to
Excellent question.
Make them more healthy and to get better stands of trees where maybe we don't have so much bug infestation and stuff?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's actually a big activity that we've been embarking on, is prioritization exercises. And so where are priorities based on different values from forest health issues like you're talking about, the massive brown-headed pine beetle outbreak that's happening, to, areas of specific concern for water quality, for recreation values, for, critical, for instance, critical winter range for elk. And we've been overlaying a lot of those values to identify, priority areas from the collaborative for future projects, and it's also happening for the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative too. They're doing a prioritization based on what's called PODs, or potential operational delineations, which is the boundaries are essentially developed based on fire line, where they can control fires, but within those boundaries, and there are probably like 35 of them from the northwest corner down to Mancus. There are 30 of these pods, and identifying where the greatest values are and where we should focus our efforts and money for mitigation work. So, yeah, that's a big need, and doing so in a way that's scientifically grounded and makes sense is also kind of a focus of the collaborative.
So a question that, do you use our GIS to make those decisions a priority? Because we have one of the best GIS in the state of Colorado.
So your GIS, like your staff people,
Our mapping. So we've actually, you could, and then we just did a flyover. You can Google down to almost count the needles on the trees. I mean, it's.
We haven't, I appreciate that feedback. We haven't incorporated your GIS layers, or like your GIS access too specifically. We've used a lot of the Forest Services, and they've done a large analysis that's called a quantitative risk assessment, or highly valued resources and assets. So looking at like where wildfire risk is, and then also where community values and structures and infrastructure are too, and overlaying the two of like where there's likely wildfire and then where community values are, and then identifying like the highest priority areas. And those are also feeding into the pods. And that was done by a group up with like the Rocky Mountain Research Station up in Montana, but I haven't used the counties. And I know that there's like, from the county, there's like a wealth of information that's available for us that like we need to like keep engaging with. And I've certainly had conversations with Rachel Medina within GIS to like make sure that we're connecting up, and I think that we can do a better job of that too. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate
Yeah,
it, Dan.
absolutely.
Thank you, Danny.
We will go to our famous coroner, George Devers. Hey.
Not that I know about.
No nationwide is the COVID coroner. Yeah, dadgum right.
I've been called a lot worse, especially lately. I think that we're finally starting to get the trickle-down effects of the COVID. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I doubt I am. I've been talking to other coroners across the state. They're having the same issues. Suicides are starting to jump. I've had 7 for the year, 8 if you count one that came in from Dolores County, but I haven't been counting it, and I've had 6 in the last 2 months. So overdoses, I've had 4 for the year starting whenever COVID started up till last week, and I've had 4 prospective overdoses since. So my numbers are way up. I'm about 20 over an average year at this time. Other coroners, same thing. We're getting weird things, different types of deaths that you don't normally see. I don't know if you would contribute it to be too much time on your hands, things of that nature. With the suicide, some of it were people with depression. Of course, with the way everything has been, people with depression, it's gotten worse. People without depression are getting depression. Anxiety is starting to run high in people. People are nervous, scared. I don't know what all's going on, but
Mental health is a big
Exactly.
side issue with this
Exactly.
COVID deal, yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of depressing. But like we're talking about depression. Then I know that you guys have seen the latest update on the website for CDPHE for COVID deaths.
Yeah, so what's going on?
And what's going on there is we had a lady, been 2 weeks ago, it seems like it's been months ago. 2 weeks ago, she was home, stopped breathing, ambulance came, they got her going again, took her to the hospital, tested her for COVID, she was negative. Got her stable, flew her to Grand Junction, they tested her there, she was negative. She ended up dying about 2 hours after she got there. So the coroner up there called me, you know, any COVID death is kind of like an accident or something is supposed to be transferred back to the jurisdiction where it was originated. So they called me and asked me if I wanted to take jurisdiction of the COVID death, and of course I didn't know anything about it, and so I started doing a little bit of investigation, and she did at one time test positive for COVID. And so the hospital up there called it COVID, and they didn't have much to go by, but just because she had it within the last 30 days. And so I went up there, got her, brought her back. We did an autopsy on her. It does appear that she possibly did die from COVID, but we're still waiting for our blood work and stuff to come back before we can make the final decision. I have 2 different pathologists looking at the lung samples that we've taken. It is consistent with it, but there's not a lot of them out there. There haven't been a lot of autopsies done on COVID people. So it's kind of new territory, but things are consistent with it. You know, there's a little bit of hemorrhaging in the lungs. But another thing that the pathologist's been telling us, that whenever you get it and you have the infection in the lungs, even though it's not terrible, your white blood cells can actually start building up in the lungs, and you can actually die from a white blood cell pneumonia just from it attacking what's in there. It fills up the alveoli the same way. So that's kind of an ongoing thing. But anyway, being that she tested positive in the last 30 days, and now that she's deceased, even though it hadn't been signed off on the cause of death, the state, because she tested positive within 30 days of her death, listed it as a death within the last 30 days. I guess that would be considered with COVID at one time. So I called them, and they called me back. I was amazed. And then I talked to one person. They told me I needed to talk to another person, so they gave me their number. I called them. They called me back, and we had some long conversations, and I think I'm more confused now than whenever I called them. These deaths are getting counted a couple of times because the CDC is going to count this death as a Mesa County death for COVID.
And then Montezuma County death certificate.
And then Montezuma County, or the state CDPHE, will count it as a death for Montezuma County. So there's going to be 2 deaths for COVID if this, in fact, gets counted that
Same
way,
person.
for one person. And
And what does that tell us about the test if she tested negative twice?
she was negative at the time of death.
She just
But
had it prior.
residual effects from the COVID could be what have killed her. Even though she wasn't hospitalized the whole time that she had it, she went through her quarantine period, went back to work, was living a normal life, and then falls over. So, and to add to that, she did have some underlying health conditions. She wasn't healthy. So, you know, people that aren't healthy, they do have a harder time with it than people that are healthy. So, that's yet to be seen, but I did talk to him about the website. Whenever you pull it up, it shows five deaths from Montezuma County. And if you go digging into the website, well, you can find the different graphs that shows how many people died with COVID and how many people died because of COVID, or within 30 days of COVID. So they assured me they're going to change your website, so whenever you pull it up, you have both categories there, looking at it rather than just pull it up and say, oh, there's 5 deaths. Well, you can look it up and say, well, there's 5 deaths, but then there's 3. And then you can start looking at it and kind of figure out a little bit better for what it is. Because I told them, I said, you just well change the website to 112 deaths. He said, what do you mean? I said, everybody that has tested
COVID's
positive
gonna
for
die
COVID
eventually.
is going to
Yeah.
die of
Yeah, so-
one way or another. So you just well change it to 112. And
They didn't buy that one, huh?
They didn't like that. So.
But you were right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think it's been told? Okay.
We already heard.
But that's
Man.
about all I have. I hope things slow down. My June and July for the last 6 years have been continuously 2 of my 3 slowest months of the year, and they're 2 of my highest. So it's
What are
not.
we gonna do about this mental health?
I think the long-term effects of the mental health and what we're getting ready to go into, we're going to be dealing with for decades. This
We're
is
going
not
to
a
be dealing with for
short-term,
quite a while.
issue at all.
The people that are certain financially, it's just going to get worse. It's not like they're going to start back to work and be right where they were whenever all this started. People with financial problems can be the same thing. Mental issues, it's not going to clear up overnight. If they say, okay, everything's good, everybody go to school and everybody go back to work and pretend like it was yesterday, it's not going to be that way. The damage is already there. So it's going to be a long road, and I just hope things gets better faster, because it's going to get worse a lot faster also.
All right. Well,
Okay.
you were dismissed.
You're depressed enough now?
We can't take any more depressing news.
All right, have a good afternoon.
Have a good afternoon,
Thank
George.
you, George. Chris, is Will coming today?
He is quarantining at home, and he offered to come by WebEx, but I said I could handle it, so you guys get me today.
I thought he already had COVID. He came in contact.
Office policy, though. We don't want, he traveled to go see his daughter, and so we don't want him in the office,
Oh, okay.
so,
Another one of those mental health issues adds to it.
yes. Always so fun. Shaq, I don't know if you got my Crayola drawings, as I called them, in your email
I
soon enough. I think I sent
did.
them
Give me one second.
yesterday, but this is not a new topic. I started this conversation with Melissa when we first moved into the building, and Shaq was in on it and stuff, and reiterating it for our safety concerns with COVID at this point, but safety measures in general for our office. So the first one being the door that connects to the hallway. I had originally asked for a specific size window with a speak-through grill and then a slot so that we could meet with the public at the door and not have to let them into the office, because as you guys know, we don't really have a receiving area for the public. So this is one of the original drawings that I had sent, and I do appreciate Mike's effort, but we have a 10-inch window, and so depending on the height of the person, all you can see is either their forehead or their eyes. And so that's a safety concern for me. In a lot of ways, we can't see if they have any kind of weapons on them. They're coming up through the hallway, so nobody else is really seeing them. I would like a bigger window, and you also can't hear people speak through it. So I would like that speak-through grill also, so then that way we can communicate with people without having to let them into our office. So that's one of my first.
Where's that door at?
It's in this hallway, so if you keep going up on that
When
next
you go up the
level.
stairway.
Yeah, in the
Oh.
stairway right here.
In the back?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the only way that we really have the public access to our office, and it is in a hallway itself
Mhm.
from there. So we have a doorbell, people ring it, and then we come to the door to see who it is, because sometimes they don't use the phone downstairs and let us know that they're coming up or anything like that, so we have no idea who's at the door. So we're trying to look through this little 10-inch window, figure out, okay, who is this person, what do they want, why are they here? And, we get mentally ill people that come in, or they may be irate. We don't know what kind of situation we're walking into. And so that was one of our main concerns when we were moving into this place to begin with. And we had mentioned to Melissa, we have no receiving area that protects our staff.
Nobody
So-
generally meets with the DA on positive terms, do they?
Right. It's not always great circumstances.
You could also have a video camera that would do the same purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, we can. I thought that would be a more expensive route, but
Yeah,
that's an
I don't
option.
know. I just-
We're open to anything.
Okay.
You
This
just want a
also,
visual,
yeah.
just to be able to see.
Yeah, and we figured this right now with COVID would be a really great solution also because it's contactless. We have a slot, and we already have the mail slot there. I was kind of hoping for some kind of shelf so people could slide paper back and forth a little more easily. But the mail slot's fine, it's not that big of a deal. But then that allows for better contactless interaction with the public. So, and then my other drawing is the stairwell that goes from social services up to us. It's open to anybody that's in that portion of the building, which is also a safety concern for us because people can just walk right upstairs. And we've joked that Matt is our firing target squad because his office is the first one there. So we know if he gets hit, the rest of us need to take cover, which is not something to joke about. But that is another thing. If we could install a wall, and I drew it to try to go around the wheelchair lift, that does create kind of an awkward obstacle right there. We need to be able to still access, and Mike needs to be able to maintain that wheelchair lift. So the wall, as you can see, it kind of goes into the middle of the next pony wall, which is open into the stairwell. So I don't know if plexiglass needs to go there. Nobody, I don't think, could access it really. It's just an awkward space because it is a pony wall that looks down into the stairwell.
Is
So-
that right out here? Is that what we're talking about?
No.
No, this is
This is social services side.
Our old room over there where you come up the stairs and you come to
in
that.
front of where Melissa and Billy's office used to be.
Yeah, that platform.
Oh, we're on
So-
Right there.
So this wall is just built on top of a pony wall right now? So it would be building on top of a pre-existing wall?
This wall doesn't
No.
exist right now.
Yeah, that wall doesn't
Commissioner.
exist, and
That's
so.
what you're asking for?
Yes, we're asking for that wall to be built.
So you're asking for a bulletproof wall?
It doesn't necessarily need to be bulletproof, just
Oh.
some kind of safety
Barrier.
Okay.
barrier. And so.
Can I ask a question? Is there do you have to have a key to enter in the very bottom door to get into your
Yes.
guys'?
Yeah, everything is locked.
Yeah, that site is secured. So, but that's also part of it. So the FBI program that we use for criminal background checks and stuff, you are not supposed to be in our office if you are not escorted by our staff or you have gone through training and certification through their program. So if people just walk up or
But they can't
wander
walk up if
or.
they don't have a key, right?
Well, if they're let in by social services, so sometimes social services people, or sometimes people, we haven't had this happen as recently, but when we first moved in, a lot of people would sneak in behind staff because people weren't familiar with who worked in the building and who didn't. So members of the public would sneak in behind other people and then come up to our area and be like, where's the planning department now? And we'd be like, who are you and how'd you get up here? And we found out that they were sneaking in through those doors. And I know social services and our staff, everybody's tried to, familiarize ourselves with each other and gotten a lot better about making sure that the public doesn't follow in behind us. But sometimes if social services, are meeting with families or whatnot, we can hear their kids going up and down the stairwell. And, besides it being a safety issue, among other things, the pandemic, it's all sort of accumulating at the moment. So we had discussed this previously. Obviously, it's an expensive build, and so we hadn't really pushed the matter. And we didn't know if, with the COVID funding that the county is receiving, if that might be something that we could consider for this, for many reasons. But it's just something I wanted to present to you guys. And
I mean, putting
my
up
little
some
drawings.
2x4s and some drywall isn't that expensive.
And then it would just need that same metal, or not even a metal door, but the same
Type
magnetic
of key lock.
key lock, yeah. So,
So there'd be two keyed doors, you're saying, to get in to get to you.
yeah. And that's something I'll have to talk to Jim about because only certain staff should be able to have access to that, again, with the FBI restrictions that I have on the database that we use. If it's after hours or something, nobody but staff should have access to our office or law enforcement. So, just one of those things. But I've already talked to Jim and he said he can set it to however I need him to set it. But that door for security purposes and keeping traffic out and security just in case something does happen is what we're requesting. So, something to ponder about. And then we're happy to get a quote, or if you guys have specific builders or whatnot. We haven't had great luck with contractors, so I don't know if anyone has recommendations, but
How
We
how
can-
many,
Go ahead.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to take issue with you guys ain't paying attention if somebody's coming behind you. You already do have a key locked door. And, I mean, some of this needs to be, you guys need to be accountable for your actions. If,
And we do. I mean, our staff is very aware.
so
I feel like
social
we're,
services are the ones that suck.
and like I
Is that
said,
what you're saying?
well, they've gotten a lot better. It's just unfamiliarity. And I don't think we've had any issues, I want to say since last fall maybe. So, but they do have families in there that they're meeting with. And if those families wanted to, for any reason, they could walk right up to us. And so, we're hyper aware because we deal with irate people and the dangers. And, we've had people stalk my staff outside of the courtroom even. And so we have trainings on this, and we do go over those safety guidelines for all of the staff. But we are counting on other people in the building to have that same awareness. So that's always the scary
got a
part
cousin,
for
too.
us. And, I wouldn't expect social services to keep track necessarily of, every single individual that they have in their area.
So
If
you're
they
saying-
tell someone, okay, nice to meet you, and have a great day, and think that they go out the door, but instead they come upstairs,
But those people don't know that's giving them access to the DA's office. Those
They
people
don't know,
Yeah, so
sure.
they're not gonna be going up there with a purpose, because they don't know where they're going,
Yeah,
so.
it's possible, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, most people don't realize,
Well,
but
I
it is
think-
amazing there, and lots of
so-
people get
And
confused.
I think social services is behind locked doors, and they're responsible for their clientele. And they have to, nobody walks into social services unescorted either.
Right,
So that, I think they're responsible for those people that they have in back there in their section of the building, so.
right. To the extent too, though, social services isn't supposed to have access to our office either. So that's just because of the case files and the information, and like I said, the FBI database and stuff that we
Well,
print out.
they don't have access to you.
They do. That stairwell's open to anybody, so John
But there's a
walks
door,
right up.
there's a door at the top of that too.
No, not yet. She's
Not yet.
asking.
Yeah,
for a
that's what
door.
I'm asking for,
So
is
you're
the door
asking
up
for
there.
that door, that slotted door with the window and stuff. So they can walk freely right up those stairs and walk into the district.
Social
attorney.
services can.
Social
The
services.
attorney can, IT,
John,
and Jim
Ian
Spratling.
and Jim, yeah, anybody
Okay.
that's in that. And so that was, the National Guard that was here, he came up to in our office, and I had to escort him to your guys's, because I guess he had been down in Jim's office talking to him, and Jim said, oh yeah, the commissioner's is up on the second floor. Well, he kept wandering up to ours because he got lost, and so I had to escort him to here. So,
So, and I want to apologize,
happens.
that's where our meeting room used to be. And so I'm familiar with what it used to look like.
Right.
However, we've never had an invitation to actually go look at the remodel to
Come on
know what it
over.
looks like. And
Come
so
on over.
I'm going by the assumption what it used to
Yeah.
look like.
Yeah,
I
we
think
have
we'll
changed
have
a few things.
Tour here in about 30 minutes.
Okay, there's a little doorbell at the top. Ring it. I'll come
Sure.
answer the door and give you guys a tour. Yeah, because we have
I can
added.
let you in the way she doesn't want us to.
Yeah, I want to go through social services. I want to see that route.
I can give you guys the full 360 tour.
We'll take the full tour.
Yeah, yeah, because we have changed a few things. There's a few walls we took out and added, and we did change some stuff around. So I'd love for you guys to see it.
Okay, all right.
Let me show you guys that.
It's
Do you-
easier to do that than actually,
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
Find out
that's
what
why
it's
I called these my Crayola drawings. I know they're not great, and it's better to get a realistic observation of what's going on. So I'd be happy to
Okay.
show you guys. when
Do
we're
you
done.
have any updates for how things are going in the DA's office? Are we prosecuting cases? Has the courts started to somewhat open up? How are things going with your
So
office?
they're allowing 10 people in the courtroom at a time. Most attorneys and first arraignments and stuff are still being held by WebEx. We were supposed to start jury trials in person. We just haven't had any just yet. They've been taking plea offers, which is, part of what the process. So it'll be interesting to see. We have a couple in October that are scheduled. It'll be interesting to see how the court handles those, because the jury selection is going to be the trickiest. I was talking to other administrators in other jurisdictions, and they were doing the jurors in groups of 10, and then when they got them into the jury box, they had plexiglass between the jurors. And there was actually a memo that went out. They had to take some funding out of a victim compensation administrative fund for jury trial safety and COVID precaution, which was upsetting to a lot of jurisdictions. We're lucky enough we didn't use that victim compensation administration fund for anything, but a lot of other jurisdictions, it went to direct services to victims or brochures of information. So it affected a lot of other jurisdictions. It didn't us. But the court is having to make a lot of changes. They're losing funding. They're having to cut back. I don't know if any of you guys have heard, that they've had one staff person that is going into retirement so they can, save some money that way with her salary. They've had to reduce, I think, 2 part-time positions that I've heard of. So they're going through their own struggles with some of that stuff. And having to accommodate the safety protocols in place are expensive. So they're going through that themselves. We're still getting some of the court tickets being pushed back 90 days. Usually you have a range that you can write tickets between 14 and 91 days, and the judges have asked that law enforcement push it back as close to the 90 days as possible. We are seeing a large increase in cases. I think probably much like George has seen his. It's just people are kind of going crazy, and we've got a lot going on, and so we've seen a huge increase in tickets and people getting arrested, and then that is difficult for the jail. The sheriff is having to screen who does get to stay in jail and who doesn't. Judges issuing PR bonds. So it's chaos, but we're all coping with it, and cases are being handled and still going to court. Like I said, most of it's over WebEx, but they're still getting processed, so it's just a learning curve for everybody.
We're gonna find out this WebEx works, and then we're gonna be able to sell the courthouse.
Yeah, that's, the public
Bingo,
defenders
yeah.
have tried pushing to keep it, because I think they're enjoying not having to drive to, from Durango to Cortez. So they keep, we need to appear by phone for all hearings. So we'll see how long that lasts and how well that goes, but kind of what we're dealing with at the moment.
All right, well, thank you, and then
Yeah.
we will.
See you guys shortly.
We'll come see for ourselves. It'd be a lot.
We're having a day of tours today, so.
Perfect.
Yours will be next.
Swing by.
All right, thanks.
Okay, this isn't on our agenda, but we do have, if there's any additional business, that the Montezuma County Board can act on it. And so we are going to have a Board of Health meeting at this time. So commissioners, would somebody like to make a motion to put us into the Board of Health?
So I would move that we move into a Board of Health meeting, and we will hear from our Public Health Department.
Second.
Motion and a second to convene as the Montezuma County Board of Health. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, if you guys want to come on up. Whoever's the lead on it, so we can kind of.
You guys can sit at the table if you want to be more comfortable.
Oh, we can do that. Or I can stand, or, I don't know. Cody, I'll have you introduce the officer and what.
I think most of them know me, but for public record.
By public record, yeah.
This is Marshall Goodall, and are you the lead marshal for me?
Come,
Yeah.
come talk to the
We need
microphone,
the
so
mic.
if you
Yeah.
would, yeah, please.
And Dr. Aiken, could you turn your mic on too, please?
All right, so this is Marshall Goodall, the lead marshal for Mancus.
Yeah, we all know him.
Okay. Yeah, we're just,
Introduce yourselves too. I'm Cody Sprague. I will be the new environmental protection specialist for Montezuma County Health Department.
Justin Goodall, Magus Marshall.
Melissa Matthews, Montezuma County Health Department.
Dr. Kent Aiken, Montezuma County Health Department physician.
All right, so which issue, there was 2 issues that was brought forth to us. Which one would you like to address first?
You can take the lead on this, on that.
So first, let's go ahead and start with the property issue that I brought up last week. And just sort of to begin, we have come up with a little bit of information, but it sounds like there is still a lot more in the works. And then I would also like to clarify, we've learned that there was not any drug use or drug paraphernalia or cooking drugs or anything on that property. Now, we have also seen a video of the property, and you've got a good look at what the conditions are like. And that's, you know, that's something, I don't know if the commissioners, has anybody had a chance to look at that, or have we sent that to anyone?
I haven't seen it.
So that's a disc. I actually do have it here, and that's something that we can give you all. And then Marshall Goodall, I don't know if you want to,
Give them a skinny scoop.
yeah.
Yeah, so this is an eviction that started pre-COVID, and then because of the eviction process, they weren't able to continue. The town is doing code enforcement with what we are able to do to clean up the property within that, the outside of it. We had the code in process, or code violations going prior to COVID. Then we had to scale back due to COVID. Now we're trying to get that cleaned up on the exterior, and still a little bit of confusion on the interior. And I can speak for what I think the town would ask the Board of Health Commissioners, and this is, we'll do what we can, but if we hit a roadblock, we may need the County Board of Health to step in and help us with condemnation or some type of issue with the landowner if the town can't get them to do that, to where you guys don't have to do a condemnation at this point. But if we hit that roadblock at some point in the future, if the Board of Health would be willing to help the town of Mancos with that.
So has the eviction taken place then?
The eviction is formalized, it's done, the house sits vacant.
So are you having any communication with the landowner now?
We're starting, the third and final notice should be coming out, and we got to do that certified mail, then an administrative action on behalf of the town against the landowner. So, and then, you know, at that point, if they don't clean it up, you know, we have to figure out how to get it cleaned up at that end. But I think that's something the town can do. Now, we just don't want another vacant building
Sure.
within Montezuma County, and that's where we may need the Board of Health.
And that was a vacant landowner, right? Or a,
It's vacant now. It's like a 1950s home. I can't even tell you if it's stick-built or not. It's just, it's in disrepair, and that may be something, Commissioner Candelaria, if you guys want to look at the video, to see what the property looks like before, because it's kind of hard to, it's a dump, with lack of better terms. So,
Was that sent to us, or
I-
how do
No,
No,
we
it's
have
only on a
it.
disc.
We just wanted the marshal to come and explain first. Again, it's tricky because we have a municipality, but then we have our county board of health. And a lot of times, as the health department, we rely on the municipalities to hopefully have an ordinance or some sort of code enforcement to do much of their own bug squashing is what I call it. But also, looking at public health, we don't want the property owner to come in and maybe, or say it's not his problem, and then who's to say he couldn't rent it right out again? I mean, the conditions, believe me, nobody's going to want to rent that property right now. But that's not to say that, let's say the town spends money to clean up the outside of the property because maybe the neighbors are concerned and, you know, just don't like the plight that it's putting on the rest of the neighborhood. But then what happens to the inside of the house? So I think it's just a communication that maybe we all, you know, the town needs to have. And again, I know you guys have your enforcement, but, you know, ultimately, my opinion is it's the property owner's responsibility to clean that property up. It shouldn't be the town of Mancos footing that dime. That's just my opinion from the health department. So, anyway, I don't know.
So
what
it
we
seems
do.
like, though, we're premature as far as the Board of Health doing anything. We're just being,
Right, I think it's just, we want to keep you informed, because you know how small communities are. You might start getting phone calls too. So it's just better to keep you guys informed of what's going on, and then having those conversations, and then if something doesn't come from that, proceeding on how we need to go about that.
right. So through your ordinances, you will probably most likely be able to get it taken care of.
The outside, yes. For sure, through our ordinances, we can do the outside, but our concern is there's nothing clearly about the inside. A lot of the ordinances deal with
Sure.
Unsightly refuge, weeds, trees, you know, that, but there's no real clear ordinance on, now that we have a vacant house, how do we make the landowner make that livable again, because it definitely is not at this point. That's where we brought in the health department for their insight to deal with the living conditions within the house.
Well, and inside the home, and, you know, there could be mold issues, there could be other contaminants, not drug paraphernalia like we were talking about. So you really start to wonder about, if someone were to come in and clean that up, what would their health and safety be on something like that? So, again, I think it's just a conversation that needs, you know, obviously Cody will be in on that, and then, potentially the marshal's office, seeing if you have any, responsibility from the owner, if he's wanting to do what he needs to do.
Well, and one thing I can tell the Board of Health is the owner didn't even know the tenants were still there until we sent certified letter for code violations, and then that's where it got involved at that point with the eviction. And so that's how well he knows his property.
So he didn't know people were living in his house, in his dwelling?
No.
Sounds like he was evicting them and they just kept
Yeah, well,
staying there.
they lived there for a while, and then once the code violations came up, then he started the eviction process. Then we hit COVID, no evictions. Then he had to restart it, and so now we're getting back into the evictions done now, clean up your property. But that's kind of where I think it's good that we all communicate on this one.
What's the attitude of the property owner?
Lives out of state, so only correspondence is through mail, and nothing's been cleaned, I can tell you that, in 6 months.
No.
So, but because an eviction process was started, we kind of backed off the code. Now we're getting back into the code enforcement, and that's where I'm asking to let us do what we can, but if we hit the roadblock, we come to the Board of Health and ask for the help at that point.
So if you actually condemn the property, do you actually then raise it? Do you actually get rid of it? I mean, do you actually, if it's totally condemned, do you?
Well, there's got to be violations on the inside that we're even capable of
Right.
enforcing.
So normally,
I
health
mean,
department, we don't inspect residential situations.
Right.
so
guess-
I think the best outcome here is to get buy-in from the property owner
Right.
to care about it, because it may be that the Board of Health can't do anything if there's no violations. If this guy wants to have a nasty house on the inside empty, but it looks fine on the outside, he might have the right to do that. If nobody's living in it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, once you put people in it, the rules change. So it sounds like our best bet is to get buy-in from this property owner to care and clean it up.
And I agree with that 100%. And that's what we're trying to do, but I don't know what'll happen.
Yeah.
I can't
So-
see the future.
So we stay on it and see if there's anything we can do.
You stay on that, Cody.
May end up
Okay.
like the M&M.
Oh,
I
my
hope
goodness.
not.
That's not what they wanted to hear.
We are working diligently on that.
What about the second issue you brought to us?
I appreciate you guys' time.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, Justin.
Coming over. Okay, so, since our meeting last week, we have had a visit with the property owner. We have had a partial payment for the permit, which is something I had negotiated previously with her. Again, after a conversation with our health officer and director, collecting a fee is not really the most important part of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get the system cleaned up. So, good faith on their part that they're at least wanting to, you know, work towards that payment in full. One of the correction measures, or one of the, hey, if you want to be able to continue to use this system, you need to probably have the tank pumped, or you could hire a porta-john to be brought to your property, and then again take showers and do laundry somewhere else. The property owner has agreed that the tank will be pumped. I've asked her to at least take a picture of the invoice that she did pay for that and text it to Cody, so that we can keep track of that. She is still working with Housing Solutions. She was there yesterday. I did confirm that she had a meeting with Housing Solutions. She did fill out the application even though it wasn't complete, so they've asked her for more information. My discussion with Housing Solutions, even though people apply for these types of loans, they're not always guaranteed. So we do have that on the plate. You know, she may or may not receive the funding. But at this time, you know, she's making good faith effort. She's never evaded me, like any of my phone calls or emails or anything. So I just wanted to let you know that. She has come in, she's paid partial fee, she is working with Housing Solutions, she's agreed to have the tank pumped, so that's all I wanted to let you know, and I mean, I'll go on your direction if you see it a totally different way. We've had a conversation with John just on the legal aspect of it, like what our obligations are legally, if we do seek a cease and desist. So I don't know if John wants to elaborate on that, or...
There's a couple options that we can pursue, and we probably ought to at least wait till we get more direction from health and defer to them, but they can be prosecuted for a petty offense for being in violation of the law, basically the health laws, and that would go through the district attorney's office, through the courts, or they could be given a cease and desist with a hearing from where really the health officer, Dr. Aiken, is the judge, and decides. You give them 48 hours of notice, allow them to come. They can bring an attorney. They do it by themselves if they want. If Dr. Aiken finds that they're in violation, then they can be fined up to $50 a day, I think. There's probably some other penalties as well. I don't remember them all. I'd have to look at the statute again, but you know, that would be a decision by the Board of Health on what you want to impose as far as penalties go.
Right. And with the notice, like if we were to send them notice within 48 hours, basically they would have to have the correction within 30 days.
Mhm.
And so just, you know, that's...
What is the correction?
It would be to fix the system.
System, their septic
They
system.
have a
so-
design. They've
Right,
already
but-
hired an engineer. I have the design. So I know what it takes, but they,
Oh, she just haven't moved forward with the fix.
correct. So,
Okay.
so funding
So-
is the issue.
Yeah.
How-
And that's why
how,
she's going through Housing Solutions for
Correct.
the funding.
For low
So the
income, yeah.
design is there,
Yes,
the fix is there, it's just a matter of the funding to
Yes.
make it
Yeah.
happen.
correct.
how costly is the fix, give or take?
Call us tomorrow.
I
Call
would
us tomorrow. We've got a
say
special meeting now.
roughly $5,000.
Roughly $5,000 to fix it. And without divulging too much personal information about the person, what is the reason for their hardship?
Well, COVID, put the,
So could we not use the CARES Act, and instead of the government imposing penalty, could we not just fix the septic?
That's a good question.
that is a good question.
And put it on our COVID bill?
Put it on that CARES Act money we
Yeah.
got, instead of the government putting her nose to the grindstone. If it's a big problem and we've got the solution and our hardships are due to COVID, why don't we just fix it?
And this started in April,
April. Yeah, so it was before,
Just after
Well,
COVID started
yeah.
in March.
just as we got started.
yeah.
So the system was failing prior to then?
Probably.
So, you know what, my initial letter Hold on.
That's a great idea.
Was sent April 14th. That was the very first letter,
That's
once
right
I
in the middle
received a
of
complaint.
Month after, yeah.
I'll check with DOLA, but if they'll allow that use of the CARES Act funding, I don't see why we wouldn't.
Yeah, I
Makes
think-
sense to me.
I think that would be great if that would be an option.
I think there are options that we can do it if Housing Solution doesn't get back to her, because that's basically the same thing that, I think when Housing
That's where-
Solution loans the money, it's almost
Right.
like a grant. It's
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, it's just a low, like a low interest loan.
Yep.
I think it's like 1% or something like that.
If
It's-
that
yeah,
much,
I
it's
don't even know.
super low. It's,
So our intention is, she met with Housing Solutions on Monday. They're closed on Friday, so Monday of next week, we just want to call, hey, has all of the paperwork been submitted? Where are we? Because again, they have to meet with their board to go over the criteria and see if they would even qualify.
I'll race you to the finish line.
Okay, you're on. You're on.
We'll do our best.
Okay, well, thank
Yeah.
you. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Is there any other additional items for business for the Board of Health?
I believe so. Dr. Aiken? Any-
No, I think this is great. I really appreciate
Yeah,
the
thank you for
suggestion.
suggesting.
I think it would be good use. So thank you very much for trying to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's wonderful.
I'm
We
sure
just need
she's
to
not
make
any
sure
more
we-
excited
yeah,
about it than
We need to get
anybody
a little bit
else.
more documentation to make sure
Yes.
that they can show that this really was a COVID-related thing, but my impression is that it is as well.
Yeah,
Well,
just
it's
from
probably not
conversation.
COVID-related, but their ability to garner the funds to redo their septic
Right.
certainly relates back to
Correct.
COVID, yeah.
COVID.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah, their ability to rebuild their
Could have
septic
lost their
system.
job, she could have
Could've
been
lost-
furloughed
yeah.
or laid off or.
Right.
But I think that's a,
Who
I think that's a
knows?
good avenue.
All right,
Okay.
well, let's,
Work
Thank
on it
you,
both
guys.
ends, we'll
Thank
certainly
you.
get some solution out.
Appreciate that.
somebody want to take us out of the board, and then we'll go back in.
So I would move that we end this portion of the Board of Health meeting and reconvene as the BOCC.
Second.
Motion is second to end the Board of Health meeting and reconvene as the Montezuma County Board of Commissioners. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. At this time, we'll take public comment. If anybody would like to comment about today's proceedings, if you would do 4 or 5 sets of jumping jacks and then come up to the,
Yeah.
yeah, come up to the microphone and state your name and address.
Greg Kemp, Road 35, Mancus. One of the things that came up in the discussion this morning is that there's going to be future discussions with the Planning Commission about 1-acre lot sizes throughout the county. And you heard from Ken Charles in Dolores, who I know you have a great deal of respect for, that he or the town of Dolores would like to be involved, and it seems to make sense that if you want to make this change, focusing on the area of influence, I don't know what that is, 2 miles or 3 miles,
Well, it starts 1 and goes to 3, so.
starts 1 and goes to
Yeah.
3, that you request that the Planning Commission, I know they already communicate very well with the Planning Commission in Cortez, but that they expand that on this particular issue to both the town of Dolores, whether it be the town board or a planning commission, and the town of Mancus, because that's an area that seems to be most reasonable if you want to change to a smaller minimum lot size, at least to start with. So, just a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Anybody else would like to comment? Seeing none, we'll
I
go
think-
back to,
I think we need to go take a tour real quick and then we'll,
you need to read your email.
Email, yeah.
But anyway.
Yep.
Let's,
I move we adjourn this meeting.
okay. Second.
there's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 This one?
You got a us off lines, Jack?